Well, my wife and I were recently, a couple weeks ago, in Provence, France, and we were in a fairly small room with a group of a lot of loud Americans, and this little 4 foot nothing French couple came in. They had to be in their 80s. Incredible looking. He was dressed, you could tell he was somehow inside the design industry. They sat down, they had the most beautiful smiles. And I was very concerned that they were going to be overwhelmed by the noise that we were making. Instead, they had a great time. But before the end of the evening, I actually sent over a request for them to get them some drinks. I didn't hear back from him for a little while until we got a handwritten note that was passed over to us from him. And it was confirmed inside the note that he was some kind of bigwig in the design industry in France. And it was very simple and short, and it said, "Thank you very much for your courtesy." And then as I think about the last line, I get kind of teary-eyed, and it said, "Thank you very much for coming in 1944. Credit to them. It was an incredible experience. The process and point in time at that for me was to go and do a quick sketch of them. To capture, for me, it was as much of their characters as I could as possible. And the fact that, knowing that he was in the design industry, this tie that he has on actually looked like a 1950s drape cord that had been strung together multiple times. So I definitely wanted to catch that too. I carry around with me at all times the typical cliche moleskin book. And in this case, I don't know if we'll be able to pick up on the camera or not. I actually did a quick sketch of them. This is one of the sketches here in the upper right-hand corner. So I sketched them out, and after doing that, came back home, and my process is one of where I take this sketch and the idea and actually go in digital form. So I'll sketch it again on the computer. Then I will do blocking for color to try to figure out whether or not the colors that I want to see, which is extremely important in any kind of piece, especially for me. And after I've got what I feel is the bare bones of the piece, I will then take the digital file, excuse me for going over here, and I'll actually print on a large form printer that we see over here. This printer actually prints direct to canvas material, and after getting the canvas piece, I'll then take the piece over and hand stretch it myself. After stretching, I'll then go to paint on the easel. So the painting process is one where I usually start with acrylics. My most important tool at this point, and probably throughout, even beyond the digital form, is my palette knife. Which I use on everything. So the palette knife I'll go over with acrylics to give me a certain texture on the piece that I like, and an undercolor, what I like to call. At that point in time, then I'm going to go and get oils. And with the oils, I'm going to go over the top of the entire piece to give it the textures that I'm after, some of the coloring, and then I'll use palette knives again to remove some of the color over the top to show through the acrylics below. So that's the process that I go through. There's advantages and disadvantages. I do enjoy doing pieces that don't include the digital because you can go that much quicker from idea to finished piece. So you can already have a stretched canvas up, you can work on a sketch, and you can do the piece, which I do like to work very quickly, which a lot of my pieces show that. I don't like to do pieces that take weeks on end to be able to do. So there are cons in doing the digital part of that because it brings out the process a little bit more. The pros is that, just like you can imagine, you've got an undo button on the digital side of it. So I can work on the sketch to get it to exactly where I want. I can get the colors also to where I want, as far as what I want the final piece to look like, which is a huge advantage versus going over and then making that unhappy mistake to a piece where you end up don't liking the color, you don't like the core of the sketch. And I think, I don't know, I can speak for all artists, but we have many pieces that we don't end up liking for certain reasons. Some people may actually love them. So you get a lot of benefit from the digital side of it. Color's painful for me. There's sometimes some pieces where I'll go through and I'll cycle through a lot of different color formats to where I get to something. In this case, from what I can remember, it was actually very, very quick. From having memory from what it is that they're wearing, it also sets some of the color tones for me overall. So in this case, for this piece, it's very, very quick. But I can tell you I have labored over a long time over some pieces with color. I don't know if any piece that you can ever look at and say is actually finished. I think with a lot of things you got to get away from it and come back to it. So sometimes it's very important just to put the palette knife down and saying, okay, stop working on it, walk away, come back to this with a fresh eye, which can mean only 30 minutes to an hour later, and saying, okay, I'm finished with it. To me, the simpler the better. and also the quicker the better. The pieces that I end up not liking the most are the ones that I've labored on for too long of time, that I've tried to perfect in my own mind, when actually the pieces that I like the most are the ones that I did the quickest in sketching, the quickest in color, and the quickest in painting. Maybe it's because what we go with subconsciously is what it is that we should stick with in the first place. It's like taking the test. It's the first answer to the quiz that you should be going with. Not always, but the majority of the time. So the pieces that I have labored over that I've taken too long, you're overthinking them. Underthinking in terms of the sketch and how quickly I can get the sketch down, how quickly I can do the color and the painting. For me, at least, the pieces that I enjoy the most, the ones that are my most favorite, are the ones that are done that way.